It's not just a Northern Ohio. And we're working hard in Cincinnati and Columbus and Toledo to make that difference so that people don't have that provincial look. We all know how provincial this state can be. And we're working hard to make sure everybody knows that. We need to finish our capital campaign. Greg Harris, who's in charge of that, likes the part when I talk about this. And even if it's nothing more than be a member. Be a member. It allows you to come there as often as you want to. It opens up great vistas on the internet and mailings and everything else. And even as small as come to the museum tonight. You didn't think I was going to get to that, did you, Todd? Come to the Rock Hall Ball tonight. Tonight we're honoring Senator Voinovich. And for all his years of service, we're honoring the Leo Mintz family. And after that, we're going to celebrate with some music, with some great new artists. A young fellow named Eli, Paperboy Reed and the True Loves. Great, great new artist out of Boston. Another group, Foxy Shazam, and a DJ at midnight. So those of you who want to stay up till 2 or 3, I got just the place for you tonight. Tickets are available. You can get them at the door. You can get them at rockhall.com, and you can get them at Ticketmaster, right? Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't thank everybody who's made these 15 years possible. And first of all, it's my staff who are all sitting in here somewhere. Would you please stand up because they got to know who you are. I've talked about most of you, but please. Our board, of whom Paul, is there anybody else on our board here that I missed? Did I miss somebody? Paul Clark, who's been one of our leading board members for so many years now, has been so responsible for helping the museum grow and sustain itself. The New York Foundation, I would thank them. The City of Cleveland, Mayor Frank Jackson, has given us tremendous support. He was the leverage financially that allowed us to think about bringing the inductions back and raising that $5 million that we needed. All the other foundations, of which I see the lovely Nancy McCann over there, who's been a big supporter of ours, and we do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I got to tell you, I got to do this last thing, sorry. This is a piece of paper. On this piece of paper, Paul, about 10 years ago, which is the last time we did something like this, really size, we honored folks like, these are the folks that really we identified. It's not all of them. You always upset people when you have a list, but this is the list we created 10 years ago, so you need to hear it. Michael Benz, one of our predecessors. Bob Broadbent, Sir Robert Horton, Bill Hewlett, Tim LaRose, Dick Pogue, Albert Ratner, Senator Voinovich, Mayor Michael White. Those are all really top-notch people who really helped build this museum and get it here. But we also have Dennis Berry, Jules Belkin, David Burkholz, James Bigger, Richard Celeste, Lee Howley, Kid Leo, Dennis Lafferty, Alec Machaski, Milton Maltz, Steve Minter, Norm Knight, Mary Rose Okar, Ian Robertson, Michael Stanley, Bud Stanner, Bill Summers, Patrick Sweeney, Larry Thompson, Dr. Jerry Sue Thornton, Walt Taberski, Bill Windling, and Steve Zamborski. I say that to give you a sense of the breadth of people that created this and made it work. And 15 years later, I hope they're all proud. And thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a Friday Forum featuring Terry Stewart, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. We will return to our speaker momentarily for the traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate your questions now and remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. We remind you that members and guests alike are welcome to attend City Club forums and hope everyone listening will join the City Club and become active in our ongoing civic dialogue. Please visit our website, www.cityclub.org, to see a full schedule of our upcoming programs. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. Today is the George S. Dively Memorial Forum on Cleveland's Tomorrow, funded by a generous gift from the George S. Dively Foundation. We have at the head table today Mr. Paul Brentlinger, a former co-worker with Mr. Dively at the Harris Corporation. Will you please stand to be recognized for your support? Thank you very much. Now we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are City Club Development Director Cheryl Heldon and Program Director Kerry Miller. First question, please.
How you doing, Terry?
I'm good.
All
Thanks for being here.
Okay. Question for you. You're on the board of the Hip Hop Museum
Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee. Okay, and you're trying to put together a hip hop museum. My question to you is that going to be a separate museum by itself, or is that going to be an extension of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
It'll be separate. So you folks will know that hip-hop is, which, again, one of those genres that antagonizes some of us folks as we get older because of content and language, but, again, was very significant in freedom of speech, really finally broke down the barriers of freedom of speech and audio performance. We induct hip-hop artists as an extension of the rhythm and blues that Alan Freed played in the early 50s when he first coined the phrase with Leo Mintz of rock and roll. And it is a genre that deserves potentially its own Hall of Fame. There's some young gentlemen in New York City who are trying to put it in the Bronx. It's run into a lot of problems. So when and if it happens, you heard my story about how difficult it was to build this, and we had the perfect storm here. We had all the support in the world. So they're facing huge challenges, and they don't have somebody called Cleveland standing behind them. So we'll see what happens, but we fully support it as an independent institution. By the way, I forgot to mention, only because he wasn't always here, Hall of Fame broadcaster Larry Morrow right over here was mentioned earlier, okay? And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Medical Mutual and Rick, where are you? There he is. Thank you for being here. Another one of our great supporters of the museum. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Terry, when I came to Cleveland in 1960, Larry Morrow was playing the Beatles and the Beach Boys back-to-back with the Four Tops and the Temptations before radio was segmented. When I went to Leo's Casino, they were black acts and an integrated audience. And I worked at Record Rendezvous, and for every rock and roll record, we probably sold 3 or 4 rhythm and blues records. Could you talk a little bit about the work that the Rock Hall does to bring our community together and be inclusive?
Thank you for asking. I ran out of time, and one of the things I'm proud of what we've managed to do is that when the museum was built, it was such a huge amount of fanfare and such a huge amount of resources that went into the building of the museum. I think a lot of the other civic elements and not-for-profits felt a little bit left out, and we got a lot of that when we first opened, and I don't think we did a very good job of pulling those pieces together. One of the great joys that we have at the museum is that because we have this great building and this great space, we try to make sure that it's available for every other not-for-profit on some regular basis, to give it to them on a free basis so that they can come down and try to raise the profile of the organization, raise funds at the museum. So just on that basis, I think we've done a better job over the last number of years. Secondly, Ruthie Brown, who's recovering from back surgery right now, who's not here, has created a tremendous series of community festivals that recognize the African-American influence, the Latino influence, and the world influence. And those festivals are free. We feel that it's imperative that an art form that's African-American based, that collides with all the other indigenous music of America and Europe, has to recognize the diversity of its origins and the diversity of this city. And you all know as Clevelanders, that's who we are, that's what we do. And we're privileged because we get to do it daily with the music that we celebrate. So we try to recognize it, and whenever this comes up, and thank you, Richard, I always offer up to anybody who's here who needs some assistance on maybe whatever not-for-profit they're involved with. If there's any way that we can help you, we'd love to be a part of it. We see all these other institutions that are trying to move Cleveland forward and be culturally diverse and inclusive. Please come see us and see if we can help.